Luther proposed to his secretary Ruth on the day his company went public, keeping it a secret from Stacy. The partners tried to dissuade him. "Luther, aren't you afraid Stacy will break up with you over this?" Luther shook his head confidently. "Ruth has endured too much hardship with me these years. Her health is ruined from all the drinking. No one else would want her now. I have to take responsibility for her. As for Stacy, she loves me to death. What more could she possibly want? Except marriage, which I can't give her." Stacy listened to his answer without hysterics. Instead, she turned and walked away, because her parents had already found her a marriage prospect who surpassed Luther in every aspect. After returning home, Stacy started packing her luggage. As she folded clothes into the suitcase, her phone rang. It was a call from her best friend Tess. "Stacy, how could you not tell me such big news about getting married? Do I even exist as your best friend anymore?" "What did you say?" She hadn't told Tess about her family arranging a marriage for Stacy. Just as she was puzzled, Tess's excited voice rang out again. "Still hiding it? Your family's Luther already posted the red certificate photos on his social feed." Stacy subconsciously clicked into Luther's social feed. Only a black underline was visible, posts limited to the last 3 days. As usual, Luther was someone who couldn't even be bothered to send holiday greetings, let alone post on social media. She spoke. "You must have seen it wrong." Tess on the other end of the phone, however, took a screenshot and sent it over, then continued speaking. "Congratulations, sis. This is the first time I've seen such a huge pink diamond ring in my life. It's blinding. This Mr. Luther is way too generous, isn't he? I remember you used to talk about loving this model every single day. Dreams do come true." It was just a photo, without any caption, 2 red marriage certificates, and a pair of hands wearing rings clasped tightly together. Stacy's gaze fixed intently on one of the hands, where a crescent-shaped scar marked the space between thumb and forefinger. That was from when she first helped Luther secure investments, drinking with investors until her stomach bled, biting down on it from unbearable pain. But now, on the day Luther achieved fame and success, he proposed to someone else one moment and got married the next. He even posted a celebratory moment on social media, visible only to her. "Stacy, are you listening to me?" The voice on the phone hadn't even finished speaking, but I no longer wanted to listen, replying only with a single sentence. "The one who got the marriage certificate with him wasn't me, but I'll be there soon too." Just as I hung up, a commotion sounded at the door. In the entryway, Luther changed his shoes while speaking in a detached tone. "You're at home. Why didn't you go to the company's listing today?" Stacy looked at him, emotions surging uncontrollably. "Do you really wish I had gone today?" Luther froze momentarily before stepping inside. His gaze fell on the suitcase she was packing, and only then did his voice soften slightly. "Stop joking around. I know I haven't been spending enough time with you lately because of the company's IPO. That's my fault. After today, I'll have more time to be with you." As he spoke, he reached out to hug Stacy. Stacy caught sight of the lipstick mark on his shirt collar and froze. The rose-pink lipstick shade was the color his secretary Ruth liked to wear. She was about to break free from his embrace when his phone rang first. He glanced at the screen and immediately released her, hastily offering an explanation. "All right, pack up the luggage. It's a call from the company. I need to take this." With that, he strode toward the study, watching Luther's straight and tall figure. She couldn't help but call out to him, "Luther." The moment he turned around, Stacy had countless questions swirling in her mind, but seeing his urgent expression as he answered the phone, her heart gradually sank. Swallowing a sob, she said, "It's nothing. I just remembered I hadn't congratulated you yet." Luther was taken aback, then forced a smile. "It's congratulations to both of us. What's mine is yours." He entered the study, and soon a burst of joyful laughter echoed from within. Stacy stood still, smiling silently. After a long while, she closed the suitcase, shut the door, and left. The night wind was chilly. Stacy wore only a thin cardigan. On the desolate street, she stood alone, the brave smile on her lips finally fading, unable to be maintained any longer. Her phone dinged at that moment. "It's Tess." "Stacy, what do you mean the person who registered the marriage with Luther isn't you? Then who is it?" Stacy stared at the screen. Her throat choked up as she typed just 2 lines. "Ruth, his secretary. I broke up with Luther. I moved out, and you might have to take me in." Back then, Stacy had followed Luther to City B without hesitation. Apart from her college friend Tess, she had no one else to rely on in this city. Stacy took a deep breath and hailed a taxi to Tess's place. The city's nightscape flashed past the car window as fragments of memories with Luther flickered through her mind. 7 years and 123 days, she had accompanied him in starting their business, stayed up late writing proposals together, run around meeting clients, fighting for his dreams as if they were her own, yet she had never imagined there could be any possibility between them other than marriage. Yet Ruth had only been with the company for 3 years. It overshadowed the 7 years she had devoted to him, and she became the one standing by his side. The first sword upon reaching shore was swung at her. At this moment, the pitter-patter of rain against the car window seemed to fall upon Stacy's heart, making it hard to breathe. After a long while, Stacy slowly opened her phone and deleted Luther's number from the top of her contact list. Then she turned back to the dimly lit room. 7 years of love wasn't easy, but she wouldn't cling to him. 3-legged toads are hard to find, but 2-legged men are everywhere, in this world. No one is indispensable to another. Half an hour later Stacy successfully arrived at Tess's place. The two drank together, spending the long night in deep conversation. Stacy recounted the whole story to her, also using the alcohol to pour out all the grievances in her heart. She didn't remember how she fell asleep after that. When she woke up again, it was almost noon the next day, and a strong hangover filled her brain. Tess saw her wake up and leaned over. "Stacy, do you know who called me before you woke up?" Seeing her expression, Stacy probably had an idea, but still asked, "Who?" Tess rolled her eyes. "Luther, can you believe it? He actually wanted me to persuade you on his behalf, saying he knows he was wrong and wants your forgiveness. Even more ridiculous is his claim that he didn't post that moment, someone else did. Who would believe such nonsense?" Stacy paused for a moment before replying calmly, "Just ignore him." Tess nodded and then urged impatiently, "You should get up and have breakfast first. I made white porridge in the pot, and there are toiletries I bought on the table. I have to leave early for work." Watching Tess hurry to put on her shoes, Stacy felt a warmth in her heart and said thank you. Stacy finished washing up and walked to the dining table when the doorbell rang. Thinking it might be Tess who forgot something, she opened the door only to find Luther standing there. Seeing him, Stacy instinctively tried to close the door, but he reached out to block it. "Stacy, let's talk." She didn't want to say another word to him, but his hand kept pushing against the door, refusing to let go. Stacy finally relented and said coldly, "Say what you have to say out here." After just one night, Luther looked noticeably more weathered. He said urgently, "Stacy, Ruth has been traveling with me for these 3 years, enduring too much hardship. Her health has suffered, and I can't not take responsibility for her. But the one I love most is you. I have no feelings for her, and our relationship won't change in any way. Besides, I've already booked the tickets. In a few days will be our 7th anniversary, and I've planned to take you to Iceland, the place you've always wanted to visit." His eyes were red as he spoke with frankness and helplessness. As if he were doing a good deed and playing the benevolent, Stacy let out a light laugh at the corner of her mouth, yet her heart seemed to ache with a sharp pain. Ruth endured hardship with him for 3 years, so he felt responsible. Then what did her 7 years count for? Could he really justify that? Stacy didn't want to engage with him, but Luther actually walked into her room and started packing her luggage for her. "I know you're still angry, but staying at Tess's place isn't convenient after all. Come home with me. I took the day off specially today and will cook your favorite dishes tonight." Stacy was about to stop him when Luther suddenly paused. He turned to her and said, "There's still an interview at the company today. Let me call you a cab first to send you home. I'll come find you after I'm done." With that, he strode out the door, in such haste that he even left his phone on her bed without noticing. Just then, a message popped up on his phone. The profile picture was Ruth's long-used selfie. Stacy clicked in. Ruth sent a bathing photo of herself soaking in a rose-filled bathtub. Below was a line of text, "Luther bro, after waiting all these years, in half an hour, I can finally give myself to you." Stacy stood rooted to the spot, her heart feeling as if an invisible hand had seized it tightly, crushing it with unbearable pain. The next second, footsteps sounded again. Luther turned back and hurriedly took the phone she was holding in her hand. His expression was somewhat stiff, but he forced his tone to remain composed. "I left in such a hurry that I forgot my phone." Stacy watched his flustered appearance and simply spoke calmly, "I need to go to the company too, give me a ride." Yet something inside her felt as if it had been sliced open, the pain so sharp it made her chest tighten. Luther, a flicker of surprise crossed his composed face, followed immediately by a trace of hesitation. Stacy paid him no mind, grabbing her bag and walking out the door first. Earlier today, before she saw him entangled with Ruth, she had considered parting ways amicably. Though their relationship had faded, the company still held a piece of her heart. She didn't want to withdraw her investment right after its IPO and plunge it into crisis. Yet she left him with dignity, only to be hurt by him even more deeply. Once a man strays, he's forever disqualified. The car soon arrived at the company building. As she stepped out, Luther suddenly called out to her, "Stacy, did you look through my phone earlier? Ruth was just joking with me." No sooner had he spoken than his phone, which had been buzzing incessantly throughout the journey, lit up with another rapid series of message alerts. He glanced down at it, the corners of his mouth lifting in an irrepressible smile as he effortlessly steered the conversation elsewhere. Don't take it to heart, I won't be going up. The meeting location's been changed to somewhere outside. You go ahead first. With that, he swung the car around and sped off into the distance. He didn't even give Stacy a chance to ask further. Watching the dust kicked up by the departing car, the calm in her heart gradually turned into humiliation. Luther, you're such trash it makes me sick. Upon arriving at the office, Stacy immediately called her assistant over. Help me withdraw the previous personal investment in YZ Times. The assistant paused briefly before quickly responding. MS, Stacy, the company just went public. Withdrawing your investment now might affect stock price stability. Back then, to support Luther's startup, Stacy had invested all her savings. Never mind that, now that the company is public, cash out my investment at the current market price. To love others, one must first love oneself. Since sincerity couldn't be met with sincerity, she would simply crush it. After finishing her tasks, she packed up her workstation and left the company. At the foot of the building, Stacy glanced back at the company's logo, YZ Times. The name was derived from hers and Luther's names. I still remember when naming it, he said he hoped the company would last as long as their future together. Little did they know, what ended first wasn't the company, but their relationship. With that thought, I walked to a nearby trash bin and dumped everything in my hands into it without a second thought. After that, Stacy went to City B University. Since she had decided to let go completely, she ought to wipe the slate clean. Stepping onto the campus, memories came flooding back. Those beautiful moments felt as if they had happened just yesterday. She walked around the playground to the grove behind it, gazing at the ancient camphor tree, when a sudden pang of emotion stung her nose. On graduation day, Luther asked Stacy to write down their hopes for the future together. They buried them beneath the camphor tree where they had first held hands. She thought for a long time back then, and only wrote one sentence. May we be like camphor trees, evergreen through the years, never withering. At that time, he read it and laughed, ruffling Stacy's hair. Then on our wedding day, we'll dig it up and see if all our wishes came true. 22-year-old Luther would never have imagined that the person 30-year-old him would marry wasn't her. The phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated with a notification. Opening her phone, Stacy saw a message from her mother along with an attached photo. Stacy, I went out of my way to get a photo of that blind date candidate for you. Do you think he's your type? She tapped on the image, a strikingly handsome man who even bore some resemblance to a popular male celebrity from recent months. She replied with a smile, him. Then, after closing WeChat, she followed her memory to find that tree, but she suddenly stopped a few steps away. Before her eyes, Luther was leaning against the tree trunk, Ruth standing on tiptoe with her arms around his neck, the two locked in an inseparable kiss. Beneath this tree, buried deep, lay the wishing bottle she and Luther had once sealed together. A wave of suffocation spread through Stacy's heart. She wanted to turn and leave, but Ruth's saccharine voice rang out, Sister Stacy, what a coincidence. Luther also saw her and hastily distanced himself from Ruth. Ruth and I came for a project interview, and since we were near the school, we decided to look around. What brings you here? Just looking around, and you ended up kissing each other. Stacy couldn't be bothered to expose them further and simply said, I was just wandering around too. Ruth cooed again in her delicate voice. Perfect timing. Just now, Luther insisted I must try the school's red bean ice. Stacy, would you like to join us? Stacy's calm heart felt as if suddenly pierced. Back in their school days, she and Luther would buy red bean ice after every P.E. class. The camphor trees here, along with the red bean ice, all hold the joys of her past. But Luther has now shattered all their shared memories and scattered them to Ruth. Vows truly prove fragile against the torrent of time. Stacy shook her head with a smile. No more, it's too rich. Ruth pursed her lips and urged Luther to go buy it, insisting on coconut milk and pearls, and a large cup at that. Luther couldn't resist her coquetry and raised an eyebrow. Stacy, I'll go get it first. You and Ruth wait for me. Stacy didn't respond, heading straight to dig up the wishing bottle. Luther had barely left when Ruth walked over to her, the earlier docility gone from her face, replaced only by provocation. Stacy, did you follow me here on purpose? Seen what you wanted to see? Stacy cast her a cold glance. What do you mean? That passionate kiss under the tree just now, or your affair this morning? Ruth was momentarily stunned, seemingly surprised by her own bluntness, but she quickly lifted her chin again. Seems you already know everything. But we're legally married with a marriage certificate, hardly counts as an affair. Stacy looked at her. How long can a marriage last when it's built on being the other woman? She tossed the unearthed wish bottle into the distant pond, completely severing the last entanglement with Luther. Ruth's face turned green from Stacy's retort, but she quickly curved her lips into a provocative smile. She tugged the silk scarf around her neck downward, revealing faint pink marks on her collarbone. Stacy, do you know what Luther said to me this morning while holding me? Without waiting for Stacy's response, she leaned in close to Stacy's ear and let out a mocking laugh. He said you're utterly boring, even scheduling intimacy on fixed days. That's why he couldn't resist taking me 5 times this morning. Stacy shuddered and froze in place. Influenced by her family's traditional values, Stacy had grown up with rather conservative views. It wasn't until 5 years into their relationship, after both families had met, that she finally agreed to share a bed with Luther for the first time, yet it was he who had claimed his needs were modest, and that this arrangement suited him just fine. At that moment, someone suddenly shouted, "Miss, look out. Get out of the way." With a sharp crack, the half-cut old tree trunk being worked on by the lumberjack nearby came crashing down. Stacy had barely started to step back when a figure suddenly rushed over and shoved her aside with force. By the time she regained her senses, a branch had already struck her arm, and her entire body collided with the tree trunk, leaving her elbow numb from the impact. Luther, a familiar voice called out, "Ruth, were you hit? Are you okay?" Stacy watched him tightly holding Ruth, his voice filled with lingering fear. "It's all my fault for leaving you alone here. I should have." At this point, he seemed to suddenly remember something and stiffly turned his head. The next second, he turned his head and saw the disheartened Stacy. His eyes flickered as he stammered, "Stacy, I'm sorry. I was in such a hurry that I didn't see you." "I know." Stacy didn't want to hear his excuses anymore. When he pushed past her to rush and save Ruth, the harbor she had relied on for 7 years had already collapsed. Seeing Stacy speak calmly, he sighed in relief, also noticing the injury on her arm. "You're hurt. Let me take you to the hospital." Stacy stood up and refused indifferently. "Take Ruth instead. She seems unable to manage without you." From that day onward, Stacy stayed at Tess's place to recover from her injuries. When she received the financial notice and obtained her investment liquidation amount, Stacy withdrew from the core leadership of YZ Times. From beginning to end, Luther was never informed. A few more days passed. Stacy received a message from the manager of the True Love Wedding Jewelry Store, MS. "Stacy, the custom wedding ring you ordered from our store last month has been completed according to your requested size and is ready for pickup." The sender then attached photos of the finished product. A pair of platinum rings adorned with delicate diamonds, the men's ring simple and dignified, the women's ring entwined with scattered starlight. Engraved inside are the words, "Hand in hand through the years, together through dawn and dusk," symbolizing the meaning of togetherness. It was precisely for this sentiment that Stacy chose this design. She had originally intended to wear it when marrying Luther. Who could have imagined that in less than 30 days, the man she was to marry would change? "Please wrap it up for me. I'll come pick it up right away." Stacy quickly got ready and headed to the jewelry store. Just as she arrived at the store where the clerk was packaging the ring for Stacy, she unexpectedly ran into Ruth. Spotting the ring in front of Stacy, she approached the counter and told the sales assistant, "I'd like to try on this pair of rings." The sales associate looked troubled. "Miss, this is our store's Eternal Bond limited edition, the only pair in the entire country, and it's already been reserved by MS. Stacy," Ruth replied arrogantly. "What does she need a ring for if she's not getting married? I'll pay double. These rings are mine." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly paused, as if realizing something, and glared sharply at Stacy. "Stacy, don't tell me you still haven't given up. Are you trying to ruin my wedding with Luther?" Stacy cast her a cold glance. "Don't be ridiculous. Why would I care about a cheating man?" With that, Stacy took the gift box from the sales assistant and prepared to leave. Ruth suddenly snatched the box, pulled out the ring case inside, and strode toward the window. "I won't give you any chance to ruin us. I'll throw your ring out right now so you can never cling to thoughts of Luther again." Stacy froze for a few seconds before snapping back to reality. "Ruth, what are you doing?" As she spoke, she anxiously stepped forward to snatch it, but was scratched by her fingernails. The old wound on her arm instantly split open, and during the struggle, a new scratch was added. Seeing Stacy's bleeding arm, Ruth seemed to be stunned as well, but she suddenly fell backward, threw the ring to Stacy, and then crouched on the ground crying, take it, I don't want it anymore." Stacy found it utterly ridiculous in her heart. Before she could react, Luther suddenly burst in, glaring at her with reddened eyes. "Stacy, what are you doing? What has Ruth done wrong to deserve you hurting her like this?" He stepped forward and pulled Ruth into a protective embrace, his eyes blazing with anger. Ruth leaned against his chest, her eyes red-rimmed. "Don't blame Stacy. She only lashed out by accident when she heard we were buying engagement rings," Stacy retorted. "Oh really?" But at this moment, Luther's gaze was as cold as ice. "Stacy, Ruth has suffered enough these years following me. Must you push things to this point before you're satisfied?" How could you become so vicious? With that, he carried Ruth and hurried away. Stacy stood rooted to the spot, her bleeding arm now numb from the cold, but her heart felt even colder at this moment. The store manager glanced at Stacy with pained concern before speaking. Stacy, let me take you to treat that wound. How could that gentleman be so foolish as to lose his temper with you without even asking for an explanation? Even bystanders could see the truth clearly, yet Luther remained willfully blind. Stacy picked up the ring from the ground, her voice as calm as stagnant water. Because it wasn't enough love, that's why she was blind, why she could make someone completely lose hope. Stacy thanked the shop owner and walked out of the bridal jewelry store. By evening, she received a call from her mother, telling her to pack her bags and come home for a while. Her mother mentioned that the other party was also quite satisfied with her, and after some consideration, both families decided to arrange a meeting for them first. After confirming mutual approval, they wanted to skip the engagement and proceed directly to marriage. Stacy only then learned that the other person's name was Leonard. Her phone dinged at that moment, and the contact request displayed the name Leonard. This was Stacy, the marriage partner arranged by her parents. Stacy clicked agree, and the other party quickly sent a message, direct but not unpleasant. Stacy, do you have any requirements for the wedding? Feel free to share any thoughts. I'll do my best to accommodate your wishes. Stacy stared blankly at the screen. A request? All these years she had been managing the company for Luther, and it had been ages since she last saw mountains, lakes, or seas. She used to be someone who yearned for freedom, yet in the daily grind of trivialities, she had lost her former self. Stacy took a deep breath and typed a line of text. If possible, I'd like us to have a destination wedding. The reply came instantly. Sure, I'll arrange it. Soon he sent another message, saying he happened to be in City B right now. Would she like to meet? After some consideration, Stacy agreed. They met soon after, and it had to be said that he was even better looking than in his photos, and very gentle too. Stacy was a little puzzled as to why such a catch was still single and hadn't been snapped up yet. As if sensing Stacy's confusion, he suddenly said, "You're thinner than before," as he buckled her seatbelt. Then he ruffled Stacy's hair and didn't pursue the topic further. Then he took Stacy to the hospital, where her wound was cleaned and bandaged before he escorted her back to her place. He even meticulously prepared meals according to the doctor's instructions, delivering homemade dishes to Stacy for several days in a row, bustling about to take care of her. With him by her side, Stacy experienced for the first time what it felt like to be treated like a princess. Most importantly, it seemed he had known her long before, and his initiative made Stacy feel unusually at ease. It was also through this experience that Stacy felt he might be someone she could entrust her life to. That evening, both families held a video conference and finalized the wedding arrangements, with all parents agreeing to let them have a destination wedding. The travel dates were also set. They would depart in 3 days. From this moment, Stacy was truly about to step into married life. On the day of departure, after arriving at the airport, Leonard went to check the luggage first. Tess held Stacy with a face full of reluctance. "Stacy, I really didn't expect you to actually get married. When you told me, I didn't believe it. It's a pity you're having a destination wedding. I still wanted to be your bridesmaid." Stacy smiled and comforted her. "Wait until I come back. We'll have a thank you banquet, and I'll let you wear the most beautiful bridesmaid dress." No sooner had she finished speaking than Tess's phone rang. She glanced at her phone, then looked at Stacy. It was Luther calling. Stacy nodded and answered on speakerphone. Over the line, Luther's voice carried obvious exhaustion. "Tess, could you pass the phone to Stacy?" Stacy said softly. "Luther." Luther replied with audible delight. "Stacy, I know you're still mad at me. That's why you haven't taken me off your block list yet. I later found out what happened at the wedding ring store that day, but Ruth didn't do it on purpose. She also lacks a sense of security." A series of explanations, all to excuse Ruth. Stacy spoke coldly. So, hearing her cold voice, Luther continued to explain. "She was recently diagnosed with depression and has been emotionally unstable. Once the wedding is successfully concluded and her condition improves, I'll find the right moment to clarify things with her. For now, I'll have to ask you to endure this situation." Hearing Luther's high-sounding words, Stacy felt nothing but scorn in her heart. Ruth was all bluster just days ago. How convenient that she's suddenly depressed the moment she makes a mistake. Stacy replied softly, "Got it." Luther seemed to let out a sigh of relief. "Then stop making a fuss. I'll rent a place for you first, and when everything's settled, I'll bring you home." Stacy refused outright. "No need, I'm going on a trip." Before she could utter the words "get married," Luther interrupted her. "A trip sounds good. Clear your head. When you come back, we'll forget all this and live a good life." "Alright, that's enough. I'm going to take care of Ruth first." Watching the phone screen gradually dim, Stacy smiled faintly. Tess grumbled from the side. This Luther is really too much, thinking all women in the world should revolve around him. Let's hurry up and go, don't keep your husband waiting. I nodded. All right. After saying goodbye to Tess, Stacy walked toward Leonard. Seeing her approach, he gently took Stacy's hand. Gazing at the flight information scrolling across the large screen, facing the imminent global journey, Stacy suddenly felt a bit nervous. Leonard held her hand, a faint smile in his eyes. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Looking at his handsome and reassuring face, Stacy's restless heart gradually calmed down. After spending these days together, his thoughtfulness and attentiveness always made Stacy feel relaxed and happy. The airport announcement sounded. Stacy smiled and clasped his hand in return, walking together through that boarding gate leading to happiness. 48 hours later, City B's sky was gloomy and overcast. During the wedding procession, Luther stood in the hallway, his mind in turmoil. Over these 2 days, he had used countless phones of people around him to contact Stacy, but there was never any response. Like a stone sinking into the sea, even Tess's phone couldn't be reached anymore. Suddenly, he turned to his assistant. What about Stacy over there? Mid-sentence, several groomsmen patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry, if Stacy dares to crash the wedding, we'll make sure she learns what happens to those who ruin other people's weddings. As the words fell, Tess, whose phone had been unreachable, walked over holding something while sneering. Stop spewing such disgusting nonsense here. Luther, who do you think you are? She wouldn't have time to ruin your wedding. Our Stacy has long gone on a destination wedding with her partner, who even cares about you. With that, she threw all the gifts Luther had once given Stacy right at his feet. Luther glared at the gift thrown on the ground, his expression darkening as he retorted sharply, how could that be? What nonsense are you spouting? Tess cast him a disdainful glance, unlocked her phone, swiped to the social media feed, and thrust it toward him. See for yourself whether I'm lying or not. Luther snatched the phone, and the video on the screen froze him instantly. Stacy stood with a man beneath the snow-capped mountains, dressed in simple wedding attire as the man knelt on one knee, holding up a ring. Stacy, would you spend every day from now on admiring such scenery with me? In the video, Stacy beamed with joy and nodded. I do. The surrounding crowd of strangers applauded and cheered until the video ended. Luther stood frozen, phone in hand, his face ashen. His eyes wide with disbelief. Tess took the phone back from his hand, her voice chillingly cold. Luther, don't you just love making official announcements on social media? Today, I'll let you experience what it feels like for your girlfriend to marry someone else. Someone like you doesn't deserve Stacy's 7 years of genuine devotion. Though come to think of it, I should thank you for your mercy in not marrying Stacy. Otherwise, how could she have married someone who truly cherishes her now, 1,000 times better than a cheating scum like you? As she spoke, Tess thrust 2 red envelopes into his hands, her tone dripping with undisguised mockery. This is my wedding gift, and the other portion is from Stacy, wishing you and Ruth a harmonious union lasting 100 years. Also, never show your face in front of Stacy again. With that, Tess strode away. Luther remained frozen in place, his expression seemingly petrified. Only after Tess had completely left did the belated pain pierce his heart like a blade. The groomsmen standing beside him didn't dare to breathe loudly. It wasn't until they saw him staggering toward the exit that someone reached out to stop him. Luther, where are you going? The wedding is about to begin. Luther stared blankly at the door, murmuring under his breath, I have to find Stacy. She stayed with me for 7 years. I can't let her marry someone else like this. Before the words were finished, the person beside him continued to persuade, what's done is done. We did advise you before, it was you who insisted on marrying Ruth. Since Stacy has already found a better path, why not just let things be? Impossible. Luther suddenly raised his voice, his eyes burning with obsessive fury. Stacy loved me with her life, how could she choose someone else? Seeing him nearly lose control in his agitation, the groomsmen fell silent. At this moment, the MC came running to urge, the auspicious time for the wedding is approaching. The groom can proceed to the ceremony hall now. Luther responded hoarsely, understood. With that, he followed the MC to the ceremony hall. The wedding ceremony officially began. Luther stood at the altar, watching Ruth in her pure white wedding dress walk step by step down the red carpet toward him. The overhead light made his eyes ache, and through the blur, he seemed to see that winter night 3 years ago, amid the swirling snow. Stacy, wrapped in a thick scarf, nestled in his arms as they shared a serving of Odin. Passing by the bridal shop, she stopped in her tracks at the sight of the wedding dress studded with tiny diamonds in the display window. Luther pinched her cheek and chuckled softly. Ruth, when we get married, I promise I'll make you wear this and give you the grandest wedding ever. His pupils refocused as the person on stage walked toward him with a smile, but it wasn't the girl from his memories. Luther seemed to remember something and abruptly ran off the stage. Gasps erupted from the audience. Ruth cried out to Luther, "Luther, where are you going? Are you going to leave me alone?" Luther completely ignored the shouts behind him, opened the banquet hall door without looking back, and ran out. He just kept running forward, running and running. He ran until he was almost out of breath. His breathing was so rapid it felt like it would explode, and tears silently streamed down his face. More and more memories flooded into his mind. "Luther, when this piggy bank is full, let's get married, okay? When we live in a big house in the future, I'll be the lady of the house, and you'll make breakfast for me every day. Happy first 7-year anniversary, Luther. I'm so happy because we still have countless more 7 years ahead." The voices in his ears were as clear as yesterday, scenes from the past flashing before his eyes. He could run no further. Leaning against the wall, gasping for breath, he slammed his fist into the cold brick and let out a hoarse roar, "Ah!" until his strength was utterly spent. Crouching down, he buried his face in his hands and wept uncontrollably. Meanwhile, on the other side, Stacy was strolling hand in hand with Leonard beneath the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. Utterly carefree. "Ms. Wilson, how are you feeling right now?" Leonard gently smiled at her, the warmth of his palm bringing her comfort. Stacy pondered for a long moment before answering earnestly, excited, hopeful, and a little complicated. Leonard gave her hand a light squeeze. "I understand the first two, but why the last one? Can you tell me? Let me share your burden." Stacy gazed at the distant snow-capped mountains gilded by the sun's golden edge, then paused and turned around to take a deep breath. "Over these past few days, I've shared everything about my past with you. By now, you must know it all quite well. It's just, I can't help but feel life is so unpredictable. Anything can happen beyond our expectations. For 7 years, I always believed the man I'd marry would be Luther, yet here I stand now, holding your hand instead." Leonard listened patiently to Stacy's answer, gazed into her eyes, and asked softly, "Then do you wish it were me?" Without hesitation, she replied, "Of course. Before meeting you, I was still uncertain, but after seeing you, I'm absolutely certain." Leonard raised an eyebrow, his eyes shimmering with amusement. "Why, aren't you afraid I might be someone who says one thing and means another?" Stacy shook her head with a smile. "We haven't known each other long. It's more like marrying first and falling in love later. But from our first meeting, I could tell you were a thoughtful and kind person. You'd feed stray cats by the roadside and help elderly strangers carry heavy bags, qualities many people lack these days. As for your worry that I might also be insincere, without a doubt, that's absolutely true, but after the failure of my last relationship, I no longer fear the same kind of hurt, and I have the courage to face any sudden changes. 7 years of love may not have blossomed into fruition, but it truly taught her many lessons. Now, Stacy no longer fears being alone and can even embrace a life of solitude. Perhaps this is the price of growth." Leonard fell silent for a moment before placing his hands solemnly on Stacy's shoulders and gazing intently at her. "Stacy, though I know you're wary of promises now and hesitate to trust again, but I hope you'll give me some time. Perhaps with the passage of time, you'll gradually come to believe in me. Don't let one failed relationship make you stop hoping for the future." "Okay." Stacy nodded with a smile. Now she had a family who loved her, friends who genuinely cared for her, and a tender lover. She was happy and content. Luther did not return to the wedding. Instead, he went to find Tess, wanting to know Stacy's current whereabouts. Just as he arrived at Tess's residential complex, the security guard at the entrance stopped him. "Sorry, sir. Miss Tess specifically instructed that you're not allowed to enter." Luther went berserk and forced his way in regardless. It wasn't until Tess received a call from the security office that she reluctantly came down to see him. Seeing Tess emerge from the apartment building, he practically rushed over to grab her arm. "Tess, please tell me where Stacy is now. I can't watch her marry someone else. I regret it. I know I was a jerk before, and I treated her terribly. But I really can't live without her." Tess just looked at him, her eyes full of sarcasm and impatience, as if she didn't want to say another word. "Luther, what's the point of this? You were the one who chose Ruth before, and now that she's starting a new life, you come running back pretending to be deeply in love." Luther was rendered speechless by Tess's words. He also knew Tess was right. Reflecting on his recent behavior toward Stacy, even he found it absurd. He couldn't understand why he had been so protective of Ruth at every turn, while hurting the one he truly loved. Perhaps it was because Ruth's driven attitude when she first joined the company reminded him of Stacy in her younger days. When she worked tirelessly for him, he lowered his head, his voice trembling. "Tess, I really can't lose Stacy. Just tell me where she is." "Okay." Tess, though irritated, finally relented. "It's not that I won't tell you. But Stacy is currently on a wedding trip with her fiancé. I don't know exactly where they are now. The only thing I know is that her fiancé is Leonard. the CEO of the Wilson family conglomerate. You're now also Ruth's husband. Continuing to pester her would only bring you humiliation. Leonard is someone you can't afford to provoke. The Wilson family. Previously, Luther had heard that the Wilson family was one of City NS top tech giants, with deep-rooted family influence. He lowered his eyes, visibly dejected. Tess, I didn't marry Ruth, but thank you for telling me all this. Tess looked at him with an almost contemptuous gaze. Don't thank me. If it weren't for your persistent pestering, I wouldn't have wanted to say another word to you. But I never expected you'd even run away from your wedding with Ruth. Stacy was right about you. You're not someone worth entrusting a lifetime to. With that, Tess turned and went upstairs. Only Luther remained. Standing in place for a long while before he finally moved, the phone in his pocket had been ringing endlessly, but instead of returning to the wedding, he went home, that home where he had lived with Stacy for 7 years. The moment he stepped inside and saw the pair of couples' slippers by the shoe cabinet, his heart felt as if gripped by an invisible hand. Memories surged through him in an instant. At first, it was just a tiny rented room where he and Stacy lived frugally. Squeezing together through all 4 seasons, in summer without air conditioning, they fanned each other with hand fans, laughing through the sweltering nights. In winter without heating, they huddled together for warmth under the same old quilt. After 7 years, he bought both this rented unit and the one upstairs. Merging them into one cozy home, he had probably forgotten all these past events himself, until Stacy left him for good. And the overwhelming memories came crashing down like a tidal wave. At this thought, he tried calling her again. Hello, the number you have dialed is currently switched off. Please try again later. With bloodshot eyes, he slammed the phone onto the ground with all his might. The screen shattered instantly, just like his heart. Now broken into pieces, the night grew deeper. Stacy and Leonard descended from the snowy mountain. It was clearly the sweltering summer. Yet the weather in Dali remained pleasantly cool. She and Leonard went to Shuanglong town for a meal of local specialties, took a leisurely stroll, and then returned to the guest house he had booked. Leonard was an exceptionally thoughtful person. Every time he changed locations during these days of travel, he would put disposable bedding covers on the hotel or homestay's quilts and prepare toiletries. He even scalded the toilet seats in the bathrooms one by one with hot water. When checking in, Leonard's room was right next to hers. Even though they were already married, he still insisted on booking 2 rooms. Just as before, this made Stacy feel both surprised and deeply touched. When returning to his room, he softly reminded her as usual, "Get some rest early. Knock on my door if you need anything, I'll always be there." Stacy nodded and was about to turn away just as his door closed for the final time. Suddenly remembering something, she called out to him. "Leonard." He stopped in his tracks and turned back gently. "What is it?" Stacy hesitated for a long time before finally asking. "It's our wedding night. Should we?" Leonard's eyes darkened, taking on a deeper intensity. Stacy shyly lowered her head as he took a step closer. "Stacy, saying such things to a grown man is quite dangerous." Her face burned even hotter as she hurried into the room, tossing back, I'm tired, going to bed first, good night." But the next second, a hand pressed against the door, pinning her against it as a cool, minty kiss descended. "Do you want me to stay?" That irresistibly seductive voice completely overwhelmed her, and she softly whispered, "Yes." The door shut firmly behind them. A dizzying kiss enveloped her completely, its gentle yet unyielding touch trailing from her lips to behind her ear, then down to her collarbone and beyond, until, "Leonard," Stacy panted softly, her fingertips lightly pressing against his chest. His breathing was scorchingly hot, yet he still restrained himself with great effort. "If you think it's still too early, I'll stop. We have plenty of time, we can take it slow." In the dim light, gazing into those eyes brimming with restraint and tenderness, she suddenly found her courage. Stacy tilted her head slightly upward, wrapped her arms around his neck, and initiated the kiss. "Here's to our happy marriage," she said. Luther sat in the living room, surrounded by scattered liquor bottles lying haphazardly across the floor. Just as he stared blankly at the moonlight outside the window, the doorbell rang. At first, his eyes remained vacant for several seconds before suddenly trembling with realization. He rushed to open the door in a panic. "Stacy." When the door swung open, the person standing outside turned out to be Ruth. Her eyes were red as she clung to him with a tearful voice. "Brother Luther, don't you want Ruth anymore? When you ran out during the wedding today, everyone laughed at me for being abandoned." Before she could finish speaking, Luther pushed her away abruptly. "Ruth, you should know I only married you out of pity, considering all the hardships you've endured with me these years." Ruth staggered back half a step, asking in disbelief, "Luther, didn't you say I was the one you loved most?" Luther closed his eyes, his voice tinged with weary coldness. "I think you've misunderstood. I have a girlfriend. And I love her very much. As for my promise to marry you, That was indeed my mistake. Ruth still refused to believe him, crying her eyes out. No way, just a few days ago, weren't you holding me and saying you'd be with me forever? And didn't you even scold Stacy for my sake at the wedding ring shop? Thinking about the incident at the wedding ring store, Luther felt even more guilty, his heart aching with remorse. He didn't understand why he had been so foolish. Condemning Stacy without even hearing her side of the story, he said coldly, "Don't bring up the wedding ring store again. I checked the surveillance footage afterward. It was you who unreasonably tried to snatch her ring and then pretended to be the victim, making me think Stacy had actually hurt you." Ruth turned pale, her facade slowly crumbling. "So what, Luther? Didn't you choose to believe me because you love me more?" Hearing these words, Luther's pupils constricted sharply. Only at this moment did he fully realize Ruth's true nature. "So it was never about needing care due to depression, you just wanted me to misunderstand Stacy and gradually distance myself from her." Ruth, her eyes flickered, but she still spoke defiantly. "I was just too afraid of losing you." Luther simply stared coldly at Ruth for a long moment before finally forcing out a sentence through gritted teeth. "Get out, don't come looking for me again." Ruth panicked immediately, grabbing his arm in haste. "Luther, don't drive me away. It's just because I love you too much that I wanted to know who you choose between Stacy and me. I didn't mean to deceive you." Luther forcefully shook off her hand. "You did this on purpose. Just leave, I never want to see you again." Ruth nearly stumbled from the violent shove, staring at Luther's unyielding profile. She completely lost it. "Luther, who do you think you are, acting all righteous? You're the most selfish one here. You were the one who chose to cheat on Stacy behind her back. Now that she's gone, you're pinning all the blame on me. Besides, she's already married to someone else. What's the use of regretting now? You'd better stay with me properly." The words cheating and marriage stabbed sharply at Luther's sore spot. He could no longer contain himself. His gaze darkened as he looked at Ruth, his voice icy to the extreme. "Since you're sick, you don't need to come to the company anymore. I failed to keep my promise to you. I broke my word. I'll have my assistant transfer you enough funds for your recovery and severance pay. After that, we'll be even." Ruth screamed hysterically. "Luther, you heartless, ungrateful scoundrel. If I'd known you'd treat me like this, I never should have." Luther ignored Ruth's wails and slammed the door with a bang. Whatever else she said afterward, he could no longer hear. His chest ached terribly. So he picked up the liquor bottle from the ground and gulped it down. Ruth's every word pierced like needles. He refused to admit it, but they were all true. Back then, it was he who resolutely decided to marry Ruth. He had arrogantly assumed Stacy couldn't live without him, which emboldened him to hurt her so recklessly. He loathed his own arrogance and foolishness, which had cost him her completely. Suddenly, he missed Stacy so terribly that he dug out the phone with its shattered screen and tapped her profile to check her social media feed. Only a black underline remained. For the past 7 years, Stacy's profile background had always been their college campus photo together. Until recently, when she found out about him and Ruth, she changed it to a photo of a solitary figure standing by the sea. Luther gazed at that lonely silhouette, wanting to click and zoom in for a clearer look. But the next second, the page refreshed. That solitary photo suddenly transformed into a picture of two people holding hands beneath a snow-capped mountain. Luther stood frozen in place, his heart aching so intensely he could barely breathe. Stacy's pale, slender hand was tightly clasped by a slightly veined hand, both ring fingers adorned with matching bands. He recognized those rings, the very pair Stacy had instantly fallen for when they passed the jewelry store months ago. Suddenly, vivid images flashed before his eyes. Stacy stood at the counter, her eyes sparkling as she gazed at him, her voice brimming with longing. "Luther, what do you think of these rings? When I get married someday, I'll wear them as I stand beside my groom. I also want to take that trendy couple announcement photo that's all over the internet, the one with two ring-adorned hands clasped together." But that day he was busy replying to Ruth's messages, completely distracted from listening to what she was saying. It wasn't until this moment that he remembered everything and understood why Stacy had run into Ruth at the wedding ring store that day. She had gone to pick up the wedding ring, she took the photos, wore the ring, and stood by her groom's side. But Stacy's groom wasn't him, and the ring meant for his finger had become someone else's. He stared at the hand-holding photo, completely shattered, tears falling drop by drop onto the cracked screen. After what felt like an eternity, the first light of dawn began to show outside the window. Only then did he pull himself together, suddenly realizing something. He immediately took a screenshot of the snow-capped mountain from the social media post's background and searched for it on a map app. After several comparisons, he finally found the matching location. Dali, the viewing platform at the foot of Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. Luther didn't waste a single moment, purchasing the earliest flight ticket to Dali. The next day, Stacy hadn't yet fully awakened when she felt a tickling sensation brush against her face, blinking groggily. She saw Leonard gently tracing the contours of her brows and eyes with his fingers. Seeing her awake, Leonard smiled with warmth in his eyes. "Little sleepyhead, it's almost noon. Did you rest well?" The moment she opened her eyes and saw Leonard, memories of last night's intimacy flooded back, making her blush. She buried her face in the blankets. Leonard was different from Luther. Though Luther had been considerate in his own way, he had always prioritized his own needs. But Leonard was far gentler. He cared about Stacy's feelings and experiences, wrapping her in warmth all night long. She mumbled under the covers, "Not yet." Leonard placed a gentle kiss on the only exposed part of Stacy's forehead. "Then sleep a little longer. I'll go make breakfast and call you when it's ready." With that, he got up and walked out. Only after hearing the door close Stacy did she reveal her flushed face. The sunlight streamed through the window as she rose and walked toward it, beholding the azure sky and distant snow-capped mountains. Waking to such a beautiful sight first thing in the morning filled her with pure delight. After gazing for a long while, she finally went to wash up. When she came downstairs again, she saw Leonard making breakfast for her in the open kitchen of the guest house's common living room. On the table were already sandwiches and milk, as well as the Osmond-thus cake Stacy had mentioned loving. She walked over and wrapped her arms around his waist, breathing in the scent of sunshine mixed with laundry detergent, a fragrance she adored. Feeling Stacy's embrace, he plated the last fried egg before turning sideways to return her hug. "Finished washing up?" Stacy nodded, barely having time to react before a warm dampness touched her lips. He chuckled slyly. You smell nice. Must have already brushed your teeth." Flustered by Leonard, she lightly punched his arm. "Someone might come and see us." Leonard took her wrist and pulled her into his arms, his eyes full of indulgence. "What's wrong with me kissing my wife?" Stacy, who had been blushing, froze for a moment when she heard the word wife. The title made Stacy feel both a little strange and a little secure. Just as she was about to reply, a familiar voice suddenly sounded behind her. "Stacy." Stacy turned her head, never expecting Luther to appear here. Beside her, Leonard also looked up toward the doorway. Upon seeing him, his eyes instantly shifted from their previous gentleness to wariness. Before she could react, Luther had already approached her and reached out to grab her. "Stacy, I know I was wrong. I was being foolish before. Come home with me. Let's start over." "Okay." Before he could finish, Leonard stepped forward to block him, shoving his hand away. "Stacy isn't going anywhere with you. She's my wife." Luther glared with reddened eyes, ready to fight. "What nonsense are you spouting? I've been with Stacy for 7 years. How could she possibly be married to you? Get lost." Leonard showed not the slightest intention of backing down. As the tension between the two men escalated, Stacy quickly intervened. "Honey, let me talk to him. You go upstairs and wait for me first." Hearing this form of address, Luther froze in place, his heart wrenched with pain. Leonard saw that Stacy had spoken. Though still somewhat uneasy, he chose to respect her decision. "All right, I'll take the breakfast upstairs first and wait for you. Call me if you need anything." She nodded, watching Leonard go upstairs before turning to face Luther properly. In just half a month, Luther's face had grown noticeably thinner, with heavy dark circles under his eyes that startled Stacy. The last time she saw Luther was at the ring shop, and the incident where he scolded her for Ruth felt like a lifetime ago. She sat down at the dining table and spoke calmly. "Luther, if there's anything else you haven't said, just say it all now." Luther swallowed hard, his voice hoarse with urgency. "Stacy, I've thought carefully these past 2 days. I've been utterly absurd this past month. I shouldn't have entangled myself with Ruth. I knew full well that you were the one who endured the most hardship with me. Yet I let her sweet talk deceive me, hurting you again and again. It was my fault. I've made things clear with her now, and the wedding won't proceed with her. Will you come back with me?" Stacy looked at him unhurriedly and spoke softly. "But Luther, I'm married." Luther shook his head violently, his tone stubborn and hopeful. "I know, you only married that Leonard to spite me. You still have feelings for me deep down." She didn't know how to make him understand, so she could only pull up a photo of her marriage certificate on her phone and show it to him. "Not lying to you. We registered just yesterday." Luther acted as if he hadn't seen it and continued speaking. "It's fine. At worst, you can file for divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau, and we'll start over." She stared fixedly at his obsessive expression, enunciating each word clearly. "Luther, I won't divorce Leonard. I love him." Luther seemed to have all his strength drained as he collapsed into the chair. "Stacy, you must still be angry with me. There's no way you could love him, after 7 years together. Weathering countless storms, how could that possibly compare to some man you've known for just 2 weeks? Stacy let out a cold laugh. "You could turn around and fall for Ruth, so why do you think I wouldn't fall for someone else?" Luther was left speechless by her words. Just as he tried to speak again, she cut him off. Luther, if you knew how hard it was for us to stay together for 7 years, then you were fully aware of that when you betrayed me. You simply took advantage of my attachment to this relationship, thinking I couldn't leave you, and kept crossing my boundaries again and again. Stacy's words hadn't stopped yet, but unfortunately you guessed wrong. I'm a woman of principle. I could never continue loving someone who betrayed me. Luther completely panicked, opening his mouth to speak but finding no words would come out. He could only remain silent, saying nothing. Stacy slowly rose to her feet. Casting him one final icy glance, Luther, we're no longer young. Life doesn't offer endless chances for trial and error. Since you've made your choice, you must bear the consequences. With that, she walked away without looking back. Just as she reached the stairway landing, a sudden shout erupted behind her. Stacy. Stacy didn't pause, continuing her ascent up the stairs without looking back. When I reached the stairwell, I realized Leonard had been waiting there all along. Finish talking, she gave a soft hum of affirmation. Finish talking. As she reached to take his hand to return to their room, she noticed his palm was drenched in sweat. She asked with some concern, what's wrong? Leonard scratched his head awkwardly and said with a laugh, afraid my newlywed wife might run off with someone else. Stacy finally understood, raising her eyes to look at him seriously, her tone apologetic. Sorry, I wasn't considering your feelings just now. He shook his head and reached out to tousle her hair, but hearing you say you like me makes me very happy. Stacy suddenly thought of something, and after a brief pause, looked up at him. What about you? Do you like me? He leaned in closer to her, his breath brushing past her ear. What do you think? Once inside the room, the door closed softly, and an aggressive kiss came pressing forward. It wasn't until 2 hours later, as the tide of passion gradually receded, that he whispered softly into Stacy's ear, Stacy, I love you. She seemed puzzled and wanted to correct his words. Isn't love too profound? We've only known each other for half a month. Yet he curled his lips into a mischievous smile, carrying a hint of mystery. Who said it's only half a month? Luther sat downstairs for a long time before finally getting up and leaving slowly. The originally clear and sunny sky began to drizzle with rain upon his arrival. He just kept walking, not knowing where to go or how to make things right. Just now, Stacy's cold and distant gaze made him realize completely that he had lost her forever. The rain fell heavier and heavier, drenching him with its bone-chilling cold. Stacy's words from moments ago echoed relentlessly in his ears. Sir, would you like to buy some tea? A little girl walked by, carrying a basket of loose tea leaves wrapped in craft paper. In an instant, he remembered the early days of starting his business. When Stacy stayed by his side through the toughest times, because they were short on cash flow, they bought some socks and set up a stall at the night market to sell them, but he was too shy to call out to customers. Back then, Stacy, a pampered young lady cherished by her parents, was hawking goods on the street, mimicking others. Socks. 3 pairs for 10 yuan. 3 pairs for 10 yuan. Sir, care to buy some? Our socks are 100% cotton. Auntie, look how well this pattern suits you. And so, through Stacy's persistent calls and shouts, she managed to save up his first seed money for him that month. Returning to the present, Luther's eyes were moist, whether from tears or rain. It was hard to tell. I'll take all of these. It's raining outside. You should head back early. The little girl's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. Thank you. Sir, you must be a truly kind soul. What about you? Aren't you going back? He tugged at the corner of his mouth but couldn't muster a smile. There was no going back. The girl who had been by his side for 7 years would never wait for him to come home again. It rained all day. Stacy and Leonard stayed in the homestay watching movies without going anywhere. After watching *flipped*, she continued pressing him. What did you mean by what you said earlier? Wasn't it supposed to be half a month? Leonard raised an eyebrow with an amused smile at her persistent expression. Stacy, care to think it over again? After thinking for a long time, I still couldn't figure it out. In my memory, I've never known anyone with the surname since childhood. As for having any romantic involvement, that's even more impossible. Stacy tugged at his arm gently, with a hint of coquetry in her voice. Stop keeping me in suspense. Just tell me, or I won't be able to sleep tonight. He leaned in closer, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Give me a kiss and I'll tell you. Her face flushed as she quickly planted a kiss on his cheek. Leonard pretended to pout. Not enough, just a peck on the cheek won't do. Stacy bit her lip, mustered her courage, and leaned in to kiss his smiling lips only for Leonard to cup the back of her neck and deepen the kiss. Stacy pushed him away in a fluster. No, we've already done this too many times these past 2 days. Leonard chuckled softly, his breath brushing against her ear. No matter how many times with you, it's never enough. Seeing Stacy pouting in slight annoyance, he finally toned down his playful expression and ruffled her hair. All right, I'll stop teasing you. I'll tell you. Stacy finally relaxed, looking at him with eager anticipation. Leonard spoke slowly. Do you remember having a friend in kindergarten named Leo? Stacy froze for a moment. The name surfaced from the depths of her memory, its outline hazy yet discernible. As a child, she had always loved repeating names in an endearing, reduplicated way. She used to call him Leo and Leo all the time, and if memory served, they'd once quarreled over a cartoon eraser. I kind of remember. She touched her chin, trying hard to recall. Was he the boy who always wore blue overalls and had a little snaggletooth when he smiled? Leonard's eyes brimmed with amusement as he reached out to tap her nose lightly. Seems Stacy's memory isn't too bad after all. Stacy suddenly realized, her mouth forming an O shape. You're Leo. The moment he nodded, the hazy images in her mind suddenly came into sharp focus. On a rainy day without an umbrella, she pulled him through puddles. Leo, step on Leo. At the kindergarten gate, he slipped her a candy and said, my mom made it, sweet. On graduation day, with red-rimmed eyes, he shoved his notebook at her, the one with two little stick figures holding hands, and said, we'll still be friends later. Turns out it wasn't half a month. It was a bond that had been planted since the days of wearing split pants. After circling through most of their youth, they held hands again at the age of 29. She was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Leonard gave a helpless smile. I thought you knew when you heard my name during our parents' marriage arrangement. I never expected you still hadn't realized even after we got married. Stacy looked at him, only now realizing how familiar his features were, especially that faint crease at the corner of his eyes when he smiled. It overlapped perfectly with the little boy in her memories. She faltered, at a loss for words. Leonard stepped closer, his tone teasing. Shouldn't such a silly wife be punished? She looked up at him with a hint of reckless abandon. Fine, how do you want to punish me? Leonard, a glint of mischief flashed in his eyes. Today in front of Luther, you called me husband. I want to hear it again. Stacy's cheeks burned as she hesitated for a long moment before barely managing to force out two words from her throat. Whose band? He deliberately furrowed his brow. Can you say it more smoothly and louder? Blushing with her eyes tightly shut, she blurted out in one breath. Husband, husband, husband. Happy now. Before Stacy could open her eyes, a tender kiss had already landed on her lips. Another night of passion. Early the next morning, when she woke up, Leonard had already packed all their luggage. Time to get up, Stacy. We're leaving Dally for the next city today. Stacy lingered in bed, refusing to rise, so he gently tickled her and rubbed his stubble against her until she couldn't help but get up. Stacy rubbed her sleepy eyes. Which city are we going to next? Leonard kissed her face and carried her to the bathroom to freshen up, as she clung to him like a sloth. To Shangri-La. Only after washing up and getting everything ready to leave did Stacy finally snap out of her daze. They boarded the high-speed train to Shangri-La after leaving the homestay. On the way, Leonard doted on her as if she were a kindergarten child, feeding bread directly into her mouth and even inserting the straw into her milk for her. Stacy teased with a laugh. Am I a baby? Why are you taking care of me like this? His eyes brimming with tenderness, he held her hand tightly and kissed the back of it. Of course, you're my little baby. Stacy couldn't help but smile, yet she inexplicably felt someone's gaze fixed upon them. Turning around, she found nothing unusual. Dismissing the thought, she picked up the Leonard-prepared steam eye mask, intending to catch some more sleep. 4 hours later, they successfully arrived in Shangri-La. As soon as they disembarked, Stacy asked Leonard to wait for her at the exit while she went to the restroom. When she came out again, she didn't see Leonard, but suddenly felt a force pulling at her wrist from behind. Thinking it was Leonard, she turned her head with a smile and called out, Leo, but as she turned, what met her eyes was Luther, reeking distinctly of alcohol. His eyes were bloodshot, his tone obsessive. Stacy, I saw him kiss your hand just now. My heart aches so much. How could you be so intimate with someone else? I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me just this once. Don't go with him. Don't leave me. Okay, Luther, can you stop being crazy? Stacy tried to shake him off but couldn't break free no matter how hard she struggled. He grabbed her arm and tried to pull her into his embrace, just as she was flustered and at a loss. The person before her was suddenly shoved to the ground by a tremendous force. Bang! Leonard's voice burned with anger. Luther, what the hell are you doing? I tolerated you before out of decency, but now you dare harass my wife. Luther grunted from the impact of being shoved but remained defiant. Stacy is my girlfriend, not your wife. Leonard moved to confront him further when Stacy pulled him back. Enough. He's probably drunk. Let's just call staff to send him home. We should go. Leonard's clenched jaw, taut with fury, gradually softened under her quiet plea. They quickly left the Shangri-La high-speed rail station. Left behind, Luther watched their retreating figures, hand in hand, and slammed his fist into the ground. A muffled sob escaped him. After an unknown amount of time, a uniformed staff member approached. "Sir, are you all right? Do you need me to take you to the hospital?" He suddenly raised his head, his eyes bloodshot. "Get out, all of you, get out." After leaving the high-speed rail station, Stacy still felt a lingering fear. Leonard remained silent beside her. She wanted to comfort him, only to notice the scraped skin on the back of his hand, with faint traces of blood seeping through. Stacy gently took his hand and said softly, "Leo, don't be angry anymore. We've already left the high-speed rail station." His brows furrowed tightly, his voice laced with suppressed anger. "Why are you always so soft-hearted? What if he had actually hugged you just now, or done something even worse? What would you have done?" She sighed and explained, "At that moment, I couldn't find you after coming out, and someone happened to grab me from behind. I thought it was you. I never expected it to be him." Leonard, his expression softened at last as he tightened his grip on her hand. "Next time you run into him, you must call for me immediately. If I'm not around, just phone me." "All right," Stacy nodded. Then carefully pulled a band-aid from her bag and gently applied it to his wound. "Silly, I was never in danger, yet you got hurt because of me." Leonard looked down at her focused profile, his voice softening. "I just went to buy you a hot milk tea, and when I came back after a short while, I saw you hugging someone else. I was so worried." Stacy looked up at him and couldn't resist teasing. "Jealous?" He turned his head to look out the window, the tips of his ears slightly reddening. "Not at all." She leaned in closer and pressed further. "Really not." Leonard couldn't resist her persistence, his Adam's apple bobbing as he conceded. "All right, just a little." Stacy suppressed a laugh and pressed on deliberately. "How little is little?" Leonard suddenly grasped her hand, tracing characters stroke by stroke into her palm with his fingertips. Stacy felt her heart skip a beat. Universe. Meanwhile, at the high-speed rail station, Luther received a call from his assistant, Mr. Luther. "Ruth somehow obtained the company's core secrets and leaked them to our competitors. The stock price is plummeting, and we urgently need you to return and handle this." Luther felt his head buzz, the alcohol in his system instantly fading as he cried out in shock. "What? Where is she now?" The assistant's voice was frantic on the other end. "After you left City N, she took the severance pay and disappeared without a trace." Luther gritted his teeth and growled, "Useless. Keep an eye on the company. I'll be back soon." He angrily hung up the phone and booked the earliest return flight. On his way to the airport, Luther bought a new SIM card and sent 2 text messages to Stacy. "I'm sorry, Stacy. I was drunk earlier and didn't mean to offend you. Wishing you a pleasant journey. As for what's between us, I won't give up. I'll keep waiting for you in City N." Just arrived at the hotel, Stacy frowned tightly upon receiving the text message. Leonard noticed her strange expression and leaned over to look, his face clearly showing displeasure after seeing the message. She immediately blocked the unfamiliar number, looked up at him, and spoke with determination. "Don't worry, whether he waits for me or not, it has nothing to do with me anymore. I'm MS. Wilson now." Upon hearing Stacy's words, Leonard's brow gradually relaxed. "Understood, MS. Wilson." After a long day of running around, Stacy wanted to take a shower first before going out with Leonard. Seeing her turn toward the bathroom to shower, Leonard took the opportunity to step outside and make a phone call while waiting. "Look into Luther SYZ Times. Report immediately if there are any violations, and his company's name is an eyesore. Find a way to change it." The assistant on the phone responded respectfully. "Understood, Mr. Leonard. I'll make the arrangements right away." 5 hours later, Luther arrived in City N. As soon as he disembarked, his assistant was already waiting at the airport. He strode into the car, radiating a palpable aura of tension. In the car, Luther closed his eyes and rubbed his temples, his voice as cold as ice. "Has she been found yet?" The assistant answered cautiously. "We've sent many people to investigate. Initially, there was no trace of MS. Ruth, but later, based on surveillance footage of her last known whereabouts, we tracked her to a hotel in the southern part of the city." Luther gazed at the rapidly receding street scenes outside the window, his eyes dark and menacing. "Tell them to keep a close watch. I want to see her before tonight." There were 3 hours left until the stock market opened the next day. The assistant wanted to point out how tight the timing was, but swallowed the words upon seeing the icy glint in Luther's eyes reflected in the rearview mirror. He only replied respectfully, "Yes, Mr. Luther." Back at the company, the entire office had descended into chaos, with employees rushing about with anxious expressions. Luther said nothing more and walked straight to the conference room. "Call an emergency meeting immediately." After 2 hours of intense discussion, Luther finally finalized the remedial plan, temporarily stabilizing the downward trend of the stock price. 11 p.m., Park Hyatt Hotel. "Luther, you despicable coward, if you've got the guts, come out and face me. What kind of man traps someone in a room?" Ruth was enjoying a wine bath at the hotel when several men in black suddenly burst through the door, blocking the bathroom entrance. "Don't think you can control me like this. Let me tell you, I've already sold your company's core data to several other firms. Stacy won't choose you. And neither will I. You'll never get away with this." Luther, who had just arrived at the hotel, Luther heard Ruth shouting and abruptly halted his steps, his eyes darkening instantly. "What did you say?" The door was slammed open. Ruth took one look at the menacing Luther and instantly changed her expression, her eyes welling up with tears. "Luther, you're finally here. They detained me here for no reason. I knew it wasn't your doing. I just knew you'd come to save me." Luther let out a cold laugh, cutting her off. "If you're so aggrieved, why don't you tell me how you stole the company's confidential information?" Ruth averted her eyes, waving her hands in panic. "Luther, what are you talking about? I don't understand at all. I've been completely loyal to you. How could I possibly do such a thing?" Luther remained silent, walking to the sofa in the center of the room and sitting down, his icy gaze fixed on her, sharp as a blade. "Ruth is acting fun." As he spoke, he tilted his chin toward the assistant. The assistant immediately pulled out a stack of documents from the briefcase and slapped them onto the coffee table in front of her. "Stop pretending. You know exactly what you've done. In the 3 years you've been with the company, I've treated you well, even considered marrying you when I saw your poor health. Is this how you repay me? Treated me well?" Luther had barely finished speaking when Ruth suddenly burst into laughter, her voice dripping with mockery. "For 3 years I've followed you, drinking until I vomited while entertaining clients for you. You promised to marry me once the company stabilized, and what happened? You abandoned me at the wedding, with eyes only for Stacy, then forgot about me completely. Now that there's trouble you come looking for me, talking about severance pay." "Luther, between us, you're the real actor here." Luther clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. Ruth was pinned down by several bodyguards, her eyes filled with venomous resentment and unwillingness. "What? Did I say something wrong? Hit another nerve? Did I? Trying to kick me out again?" Luther's face had darkened to the extreme, his voice laced with icy coldness. "Seems we have nothing left to discuss. I originally thought to spare you some dignity out of past affection, but clearly you don't need it." Seeing Luther turn to leave, Ruth panicked instantly. She struggled and screamed. "Luther, what exactly are you trying to do?" Luther didn't look back at her, merely gesturing to his assistant with a cold, hard tone. "Call the police. The evidence for stealing trade secrets is all prepared. Handle the subsequent legal procedures, and what's more, I never want to see this person again from now on." With that, he turned and walked straight out. Ruth screamed like a madwoman. "Luther, how dare you send me to prison? You promised I'd share in your good fortune. Come back here." Before she could finish, a sharp police siren sounded from downstairs, growing louder as it approached. Ruth tried to get up and flee, but several bodyguards pinned her down firmly. The assistant looked at her and shook his head helplessly. "Ruth, I advise you to cooperate. After all these years with Mr. Luther, surely you know how he operates." Ruth shuddered, her thoughts instantly drifting back to the past. How could she not know? Of course she knew. First encounter Luther, she had just lost her job, sending out resumes everywhere but hitting walls repeatedly, with not even enough money in her pocket for next month's rent, until she applied to Luther's company, which was very small back then. With the boss personally conducting all interviews, her palms were sweaty as she walked in, and seeing him sitting behind a shabby desk with a stern expression made her even more nervous. Yet unexpectedly, the interview went remarkably smoothly. After some conversation, Luther rarely cracked a smile. But when the interview concluded, he uttered one sentence: "We don't mind employees lacking experience, but what we absolutely cannot tolerate is betrayal and scheming. If I encounter such behavior, I will never let it slide." Back then, she had sworn with conviction that she would follow this man to build something extraordinary together. Now the company has gone public, yet it strays further and further from its original ideals. She didn't understand how things had come to this point either. Perhaps it was because she had weathered too many storms with Luther over the years. Seeing Stacy by his side, jealousy coiled around her heart like rampant vines. She loved him, but she also hated how his eyes had never truly seen her. In the end, love had twisted into hatred. "Ruth, we've received a report. Please come with us." The icy voice snapped Ruth back to reality. As she faced the uniformed police officer before her, she suddenly felt drained of all strength. When leaving the hotel, she caught sight of that black-suited figure in the corridor, and 2 lines of tears finally streamed down her cheeks. Only after Ruth had been completely taken away did the assistant approach Luther standing at the end of the corridor. "Mr. Luther, let's go back now." Luther didn't turn around, merely gazing at the heavy night outside the window, his voice carrying a trace of barely perceptible weariness. I've been wondering if I truly made a mistake. Why else would all those close to me leave one by one? The assistant quickly reassured him. How could you possibly be wrong? You're the backbone of this company. Even if there were mistakes, you shouldn't doubt yourself like this. The assistant's words instantly awakened him. As the YZ Times helmsman, he held the livelihoods and futures of countless employees in his hands. He couldn't afford to be despondent. There were still many tough battles ahead that he needed to face. Exhausted from the day, Luther fell into a deep sleep as soon as he returned home. The next day, just as the first light of dawn tinged the sky, he received a frantic phone call from his assistant at 8 in the morning. Mr. Luther, something's happened. Check Twitter now. Still groggy. Luther jolted awake and immediately opened his phone to refresh the page. A sudden official news headline glared back at him. YZ Times under investigation for regulatory violations, ordered to rectify and suspend trading immediately. The company had barely recovered from the devastating blow of Ruth S. confidential leak when it was hit with an official notice from regulatory authorities. The stock market instantly crashed in response. Twitter trending topics were flooded with waves of accusations and mockery. After making me invest so much before, YZ Times is completely done for now. I heard the boss of this company has terrible character too, dumped his girlfriend of 7 years to marry his secretary. A company with such terrible products and no credibility doesn't deserve to stay on the market. Delist it already and stop scamming investors. Reading the comments under the trending topic, Luther felt dizzy, his fingertips trembling uncontrollably. All these years of hard work are about to go down the drain. The more he thought about it, the heavier his heart grew. Grabbing his coat, he rushed to the company. The atmosphere in the meeting room was so tense it felt suffocating. Mr. Luther, the situation is critical now. The stock price has hit the lower limit 3 times, and the regulators are pressing hard. What should we do? Looking at the anxious expressions in the crowd below, a dull ache throbbed in his heart. These were all trusted aides who had followed him for years. Luther took a deep breath. Forcing himself to stay calm, he said solemnly, "Right now we're only under investigation, not convicted. The truth will out as long as we cooperate fully. There's still room for maneuver. Legal team, draft a compliance rectification plan immediately. Compile and submit all financial records and project contracts from the past 3 years to seek leniency. PR department, activate the public opinion emergency response plan immediately. First, issue a statement to clarify the situation and stabilize investor sentiment." By the time the series of deployments were completed, it was already 6 p.m. Luther rubbed his tense temples. Feeling completely drained as he leaned wearily against the office sofa, he opened his phone and stared at the messages he'd sent to Stacy in their chat window, all marked as read but left unanswered. My heart felt as if gripped by something, with waves of pain throbbing in my chest. In the past, no matter what happened, she was always by my side, and at the very least, Ruth would offer advice. But now, when he turned around, there was no one behind him. Watching the setting sun outside the window, he felt utterly alone, shouldering the immense weight of this vast company. The company had been listed for less than 3 months, yet problems kept emerging one after another. He had no clue how to navigate the road ahead. With these thoughts weighing on him, he could no longer hold on and fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. Meanwhile, after spending the entire day sightseeing in Shangri-La, Stacy and Leonard headed to their next scenic spot after dinner, the giant prayer wheel of Duke's ancient town. I heard this is the must-visit landmark of Shangri-La, where everyone who turns the prayer wheel receives lasting blessings. It was also the attraction she had most looked forward to, having longed to experience this devotion for years. Never did she imagine she'd get to share this moment with someone special. As soon as they reached the square's entrance, the colossal golden prayer wheel loomed in the night, radiating an aura of solemn sanctity. The surface of the prayer wheel is carved with intricate scriptures and auspicious patterns, each groove seemingly steeped in the devotion of passing years. Many people have already gathered around it, pushing it slowly while murmuring prayers under their breath. Leonard tightened his grip on Stacy's hand, his gaze resting on the spinning prayer wheel as he spoke softly, "Let's go try it too." Stacy nodded with a smile, her steps light as she followed him. Beneath the prayer wheel, she tilted her head to gaze at the towering behemoth reaching into the night sky. Joining the crowd to push the cool, metallic surface in slow rotation, Leonard leaned close to her ear, his voice as gentle as the evening breeze. "Stacy, welcome to the closest place to heaven." Stacy turned her head to look at him, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the spinning prayer wheel. "Leo, I heard prayer wheels should be turned clockwise. Each rotation is equivalent to 1.28 million blessings. Let's spin it a few more times together." Leonard's eyes crinkled with a smile as he squeezed her hand. "What wish do you want to make?" She pursed her lips with a soft laugh. It must stay silent, spoken wishes won't come true. As she spoke, Leonard gently pulled Stacy's hand forward, stepping steadily with the stream of pilgrims. The prayer wheel slowly turns under the collective push of the crowd, its bronze bells chiming softly in the night breeze. As if accompanying every whispered wish, Stacy closes her eyes and makes a silent wish in her heart. First, may my parents enjoy health and smooth sailing, free from worries year after year. Second, may those around me find peace and joy, remaining by my side without parting. Third, may she and Leonard spend the rest of their lives as warm and steady as this moment. When she opened her eyes again, they had already completed more than 3 full circles. Leonard led her away from the crowd, standing at the edge of the square, admiring the hazy play of light and shadow as the prayer wheels turned in the night. She asked him, "Leo, what wish did you make?" Leonard raised an eyebrow with a light chuckle. "I knew you'd ask. But doesn't saying it out loud make the wish not come true?" Stacy shook his hand playfully, cooing, "Just tell me secretly, okay?" Before Stacy could react, he lowered his head and pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, then leaning closer to her ear, his breath warm. "I wished that Stacy's heart's desires would all come true in this lifetime." Stacy, her pupils trembled as she stared at him in stunned silence, gazing into Leonard's moonlit eyes. She saw her own reflection mirrored clearly within them. At this moment, Stacy felt her heart swell with overwhelming happiness. On their way back to the hotel later, she asked him again, "Weren't you afraid my wishes might not include you?" He tightened his grip on her hand and said with conviction, "Then I'd still hope all your wishes come true, even if I'm not in them." After a week of traveling in Shangri-La, they concluded their destination wedding trip and prepared to return to City N. At the airport, Stacy and Leonard were waiting in the departure lounge when Tess called her. "Stacy, it's been a month. You finally remembered you still have a best friend like me. Truly, with a man in your life, you forget your roots." She forgot the call was on speakerphone and awkwardly laughed it off. "Tess, what are you saying? How could I ever forget you?" Tess chuckled on the other end. All right, I'm just teasing. Pass the phone to your Leonard." She looked at Leonard, smiling as she raised her phone. "He's right beside me and can hear you. Go ahead." Tess cleared her throat, her tone carrying a hint of mischief. "Mr. Leonard, it's been so long since us sisters had time alone together. Could you lend me Stacy for tonight when you return?" Leonard responded, his voice gentle yet measured. "Since Miss Tess has asked, of course it's no problem, but make sure she gets to bed early." Tess immediately broke into a wide smile. "Thank you, Mr. Leonard, for parting with it. I promise to return it in perfect condition." At 9 p.m., Stacy and Leonard arrived in City N. The moment they exited the airport arrivals gate, they saw Tess waving energetically through the crowd, her face radiant with joy. Leonard had to return to the group headquarters immediately due to an urgent meeting. After briefly saying goodbye to Tess, he left with his assistant. After Leonard left, only Stacy and Tess remained. She suddenly leaned in, eyes full of gossip. "Stacy, quick, tell me what kind of love potion you gave this man. The whole Twitter is going crazy." Stacy looked utterly confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" Tess poked her arm. "Stop playing dumb. Hours ago, Leonard flaunted your travel wedding photos on his Twitter. The comments section is about to explode." Her heart skipped a beat as she frantically opened Twitter. Leonard's profile pinned a new post at the most prominent spot. "Found the leading lady of my life. From now on, it's just us two, sharing a home, 3 meals, and 4 seasons together." The photo shows their silhouettes holding hands beneath the prayer wheels in Shangri-La. Another captures her in a wedding dress, Leonard snapping her profile as she laughs with her head tilted back, sunlight catching her hair in a dazzling warmth. The post garnered millions of likes, flooding the comments section, with even his Wilson family's corporate Twitter account reposting the update with a caption, "Congratulations to Mr. Leonard, may the couple be forever united in love." 5 out of the top 10 trending topics on Twitter are about Leonard Stacy. Just then, several messages suddenly popped up on the phone screen. They were from Leonard. "Stacy, you must have seen Twitter by now. I didn't post earlier because I was afraid it might affect our trip. Now that the trip is over, I can finally proudly announce to the world that you are Leonard's wife. Are you happy now?" Seeing the message, Stacy felt an indescribable mix of warmth and sweetness in her heart, and her fingertips flew across the screen. "Thank you for giving me such a sense of occasion." A kissing emoji immediately popped up in the chat box. She closed her phone, unable to suppress a smile. Tess, standing by, deliberately drew out her words, mimicking Leonard's tone. "I can finally declare you my wife, Ew." The stench of love. Stacy's cheeks flushed from Tess's teasing, and she reached out to swat her arm. Tess then stopped laughing and pulled her towards the parking lot. "Come on, I've already booked a restaurant to welcome you. Let's have a good meal and you can tell me all about your sweet journey with Leonard." Stacy nodded with a smile, her eyes brimming with joy as she got into the car with Tess. Meanwhile, in a private room of an upscale restaurant in the city, with the company embroiled in constant turmoil recently, Luther had invited several senior business figures. Hoping to secure some room for maneuver, a previously collaborated Mr. Luke raised his glass and spoke leisurely. Luther, young people tend to act impulsively, don't be in such a hurry. Luther raised his glass, his tone earnest. Mr. Luke, I can't afford to wait, the company's stock keeps falling, and regulators are breathing down our necks. Mr. Luke took a sip of wine and mused, here's what we'll do, I'll help you find a solution, reach out to the Wilson family conglomerate for assistance. They'll definitely help you weather this crisis. The Wilson family conglomerate, that's Leonard's enterprise. Thinking of Stacy and Leonard, Luther paused, his brow furrowing slightly. Is there any other way? At that moment, another Mr. Wang slapped the table and laughed. Of course, there certainly is. As long as Luther drinks with us tonight and makes us happy, we'll naturally come up with a way to help you through this difficulty. Luther clenched the wine glass in his hand abruptly, freezing in place. These seasoned business veterans before him were notoriously difficult to deal with, notorious for making things hard for people during drinking sessions. He was allergic to alcohol, just a sip would cover his body in red rashes, and in severe cases, even cause breathing difficulties. In the past, whenever he worked with them, it was always Stacy and Ruth who shielded him from the drinks and smoothed things over for him. All right, tonight I'll keep you seniors company until we're thoroughly drunk. This time, no one could share the burden for him, he had to tough it out alone. Glass after glass of liquor poured down his throat, the fiery liquid scorching his esophagus. Just as his consciousness began to blur, Mr. Luke suddenly slapped his thigh. That reminds me about the Wilson family we mentioned earlier. Have you checked Twitter? The perennial iceberg, Mr. Leonard, actually got married. Boss Wang smacked his lips and chimed in. I've seen him. Mr. Leonard is young, capable, and wealthy. I even thought about introducing my daughter to him before, but he was completely unapproachable. Who would have thought? The conversation was just halfway through, already drunk with glazed eyes. Luther perked up upon hearing the words Mr. Leonard and marriage. What are you talking about? Mr. Luke shook his phone with a teasing tone. Luther, you're really drunk. We're talking about Wilson family's conglomerate Mr. Leonard. He officially announced his marriage today. Seems her surname was Smith or something. Didn't you have a girlfriend with that surname before? What was her name again? Boss Wang slapped his forehead. I remember, her name was Stacy. She could drink like a fish, even outdrank me, back then. She helped Luther secure that project by drinking herself to the point of a stomach hemorrhage with us. Otherwise, I wouldn't have relented and signed. Mr. Luke suddenly realized, Stacy, isn't she Mr. Leonard's officially announced wife? So Luther had his sweetheart stolen by him. The private room erupted in bursts of laughter, the gazes piercing Luther like needles. Only Luther stumbled to pull out his phone, fingers trembling as he opened Twitter. Seeing Leonard's pinned photo where Stacy leaned against his shoulder with a radiant smile, along with the caption found my leading lady, his vision darkened, his phone clattered to the ground with a sharp crack, the screen shattering instantly. Boss Wang was still rambling beside him. No wonder you refused to seek help from the Wilson family, but who wouldn't want such a devoted woman? Luther, you're truly foolish. Back then, she was willing to risk her life for you. Those words made Luther clutch his chest abruptly, a metallic taste rising in his throat. He pushed back his chair and stumbled to the restroom outside the private room, gripping the toilet as he vomited violently. Large patches of red rashes began spreading across my body, the itching mingling with the alcohol's burn to sear my nerves. He turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on his face, and looked up at his disheveled reflection in the mirror before suddenly letting out a low chuckle. Yes. He was such a fool, such a wonderful Stacy had slipped through his fingers, and from now on, he would never get her back. Even outsiders knew Stacy was special. He had taken that kindness for granted after being together for so long. Now, there was no one left to stand by his side, to shield him from drinks, to bail him out, or to endure hardships with him. Leaning against the cold tiles, he slid down to sit on the floor. Only after who knows how long did he finally get up. Ready to return to the private room, as he passed by the neighboring room, he suddenly heard a familiar voice from inside. So how far have you gotten with Leonard now? In the private booth, Tess was teasingly pressing Stacy for details. She had never been good at lying and stammered. Well, just before she could speak, Stacy was interrupted by Tess. I knew it. Stacy, you look so innocent, but you're quite bold. How is he in bed? She stammered for a long time. Her face already flushed crimson, wishing she could bury herself in the couch seams, but couldn't resist Tess's persistent questioning. She whispered faintly, very, very good. Tess pressed on relentlessly. Who's better, him or Luther? She flushed with embarrassment and anger. Tess persisted relentlessly. Tell me, I really want to know. Unable to resist her wheedling, Stacy barely whispered, Leo, the moment the words left her lips. The private room door was flung open with a bang. Luther stood at the door, his eyes bloodshot and his voice hoarse. Stacy, did you sleep with him? Stacy was startled, frozen for a moment, but quickly composed herself with a cold expression. Luther, my business is none of your concern. Tess snapped out of it too, immediately shielding her behind her back and retorting with hands on her hips. Exactly. What the hell does a couple doing their thing have to do with you? How dare you come here to humiliate yourself? Didn't you hear what Stacy said? Leonard is 100 times better than you. Luther gripped her hand, refusing to let go, his eyes filled with unbearable pain. How could this be? You're clearly just angry with me. How could you sleep with Leonard? Do you really not love me at all anymore? Tess stamped her foot in rage, pointing at his nose as she yelled, otherwise what? Should she still love you when she's already married? When you cheated with Ruth, why didn't you think about the despicable things you'd done? Luther said fiercely. Tess, get out. Let me talk to Stacy alone. Tess stiffened her neck and retorted, no, whatever you have to say it in front of me. Don't even think about bullying Stacy again. Watching the two at a stalemate, Stacy took a deep breath and forcefully pulled her hand back. Luther, we have nothing left to discuss. I have a husband now, please respect that. With that, she took Tess by the hand and swiftly exited the private room. Just as they turned the corridor corner, the sharp shatter of a glass breaking echoed from the room, followed by Luther's unrestrained roar. Stacy marched forward without looking back, her steps never faltering no matter how desperately her name was called behind her. In the car, Tess kept grumbling indignantly. How can someone be so shameless? It was clearly him who cheated, yet is acting like you wronged him. Stacy softly comforted her. All right, calm down, don't let him ruin your mood. Tess turned her head, her eyes filled with a hint of worry. But, Stacy, you truly have no lingering feelings for him, do you? She watched the neon lights flash past outside the window, her voice calm. 7 years of love can't be forgotten overnight, it's impossible. I might even remember those beautiful moments for the rest of my life, but once love is scarred, it can never be mended. Now, all I feel toward him is relief, nothing more, and I truly love Leonard. I just want to cherish him and build a good life together from now on. Tess finally let out a relieved sigh after hearing her words. That's good. I thought you were still holding on to something. Stacy smiled. Really, it's all in the past now. That night, Stacy and Tess stayed up late talking on her couch. They talked about love, work, and life. She said that during her time away, she had met someone she liked, her eyes sparkling with unconcealable delight, and so they chatted intermittently until finally drifting into deep sleep. The next day, she woke up at 10 in the morning. Leonard came to pick up Stacy, saying he had booked a restaurant for both families to have lunch together. She applied light makeup and changed into a tasteful little Chanel-style dress before heading downstairs. Waiting downstairs, Leonard lit up with a smile the moment he saw her, naturally wrapping an arm around her waist. My wife looks so beautiful today. Tess, who had followed her down to see her off, exaggeratedly covered her mouth upon hearing this. Wow, no wonder you two are the trending couple on Twitter. This public display of affection is so sweet it's making my teeth ache. Stacy's cheeks flushed as she nudged her arm. All right, go back upstairs, Leonard, and I will treat you to dinner another day. Tess winked at her. All right, I'll stop being the third wheel now, but I'm going to make Mr. Leonard treat me to something expensive later. Don't be stingy. Leonard nodded with a smile. No problem. You can order whatever you want. In the passenger seat, Stacy unconsciously twisted her skirt with her fingertips and spoke softly. Leo, what are your parents like? This was her first time meeting Leonard's parents, and she couldn't help feeling nervous, wanting to mentally prepare herself first. Leonard noticed Stacy's unease and took her hand at the red light, his palm radiating a reassuring warmth. Don't worry, my parents are very open-minded people. In fact, it was because my mom saw your photo and liked you so much that our families settled on this marriage. Stacy paused for a moment, feeling much more at ease, and asked with a smile. What about your dad? His hands turned the steering wheel lightly as he spoke with a hint of amusement. My dad is a man of few words. At home, all matters, big or small, are decided by my mom. My mom has always been decisive and efficient. A large part of my dad's current success is thanks to her. She couldn't help but smile. They sound very much in love. No wonder they raised someone as gentle and considerate as you. He glanced sideways at Stacy, his eyes deepening with warmth. Then freed one hand to kiss the back of hers. We'll be this loving too, and have adorable children just like you someday. Her cheeks flushed as she gave his arm a playful shove. The lights green, he chuckled softly, pressing the accelerator as the car glided smoothly forward. The sunlight outside the window fell on his profile through the glass, his soft contours bringing a sense of comfort. Upon arriving at the predetermined Genting hotel, Leonard gallantly opened the car door for Stacy and led her by the hand toward the floor where the private room was located. As soon as they entered the private room, both sets of elders were already present, rising with smiles to greet them upon their arrival. "Stacy and Leo are here. Come, have a seat." Especially Leonard's mom, who enthusiastically waved at her, her eyes crinkling into crescent moons. "Stacy, come, sit next to me." Her parents also nodded and smiled, urging her to go over, so she obediently walked to Leonard's mom and sat down beside her. Stacy and Leonard went over together to sit down. With Leonard by her side, she felt much more at ease. No sooner had she settled in than Leonard's mom grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go, her eyes brimming with affection. "Stacy, have you been having fun with Leo these days? He hasn't been bullying you, has he? If he dares to treat you badly, you just tell Auntie." Everyone at the table burst into laughter, while Stacy blushed and shook her head. "No, Auntie, Leo treats me very well," Leonard added with a smile, his voice full of affection. "Mom, I wouldn't dare bully such a wonderful wife." Leonard's mom shot him a mock glare, then carefully took out a jade bracelet from her jewelry box and slipped it onto Stacy's wrist. "This was part of my dowry. Consider it your name-changing gift today. From now on, we're family." Seeing such a precious gift, Stacy immediately tried to take it off. "Auntie, this is too valuable. I can't accept it." But Leonard's mom insisted on holding her hand, refusing to let her remove it. Even the usually quiet Uncle Jiang spoke up, taking out a red booklet from his briefcase. "Take it, child. This is a house with a courtyard that your aunt and I specially picked out in the suburbs for you and Leo as a wedding gift." Stacy stared at the property deed, momentarily stunned, feeling both touched and flustered, and could only look to Leonard for help. Leonard squeezed her hand and said gently, "Accept it. It's my parents' heartfelt gift." His parents sat across from them, their faces filled with warm, contented smiles. Mom gently nudged Dad's arm, her eyes filled with tenderness and reassurance for her. Dad then nodded at Stacy, signaling for her to accept this gesture of kindness. She finally composed herself and said with reddened eyes, "Thank you, Uncle and Auntie." Before she could finish, Leonard's mom interrupted with a smile. "Silly child, still calling me Auntie now." Stacy was momentarily stunned before snapping back to reality, her cheeks flushing as she softly called out, "Dad, Mom." Leonard's dad and Leonard's mom responded with particular enthusiasm, while Aunt Jiang even dabbed at the corners of her eyes in joy, and Uncle Jiang wore a gentle smile. As the lively atmosphere gradually settled, Mrs. Smith finally spoke with a smile. "Dear in-laws, you're being too kind. It's Stacy's good fortune to be so cherished by you." With that, she took out an embroidered box from her bag and handed it to Leonard, saying, "This is a small token from us, a Hatien jade peace pendant. May Leo wear it and live happily ever after with Stacy. Nothing matters more than peace and safety." Leonard accepted it with both hands and said earnestly, "Thank you, Uncle and Auntie." Mr. Smith added from the side, "Now that you kids are married, you're adults from here on out. You must take on the responsibilities that come with it. Leo, Stacy has been spoiled by us since she was little and might have her occasional temper. Please be patient with her." Leonard immediately straightened his posture and looked solemnly at Mr. and Mrs. Smith. "Uncle, Auntie, don't worry. I'll treat Stacy well for the rest of my life and never let her suffer." The atmosphere at the table grew even warmer as the elders exchanged heartfelt words. One after another, the conversation flowed from their destination wedding to their future life together. Stacy watched the scene before her, her heart soaking in warm water, soft and tender. So this was what it felt like to be cherished by both families, utterly grounding. As dishes were served one after another, everyone chatted over the meal, the atmosphere growing even more harmonious. Leonard's mom set down her chopsticks and looked at me and Leonard, her tone earnest yet hopeful. "We fully support Leo and Stacy having a destination wedding, but we'd still love for you to hold a formal ceremony in City N2. Invite all your relatives and friends to welcome Stacy with great festivity, and let everyone share in your joy." Mr. and Mrs. Smith chimed in agreement. "That's exactly what we were thinking too. It wouldn't be proper without having all the relatives come for a celebratory drink." Stacy looked at Leonard, who was gazing at her tenderly with an inquiring smile in his eyes. She gave a slight nod. "When Leonard's family treats me with such thoughtfulness, how could I possibly refuse?" The family concluded their lunch in this warm and harmonious atmosphere. After the meal, Smith's mother asked her to return to her own home first, as tradition dictates that the bride and groom should live separately before the wedding, only to be formally united on the wedding day. Leonard drove them home first. After the parents went upstairs, the car remained parked downstairs. Motionless for a while, he held onto Stacy's hand reluctantly, his voice tinged with grievance. "We just got back and already have to live apart. I can't bear to be away from you." Stacy was amused by him and crooked her finger. "Leonard, bend down a little." Leonard obediently leaned forward. She reached out and ruffled his hair, his pupils widening slightly with an unexpectedly docile expression. Stacy smiled as if coaxing a child. "Be good, it's just a few days, it'll be over soon." But the next second, Leonard suddenly turned his head and planted a quick kiss on her cheek. Just as she was about to push him away, he grabbed her hand, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "My wife is too adorable, I couldn't resist kissing you." Stacy felt her cheeks grow warm as she pulled her hand away. "My parents are waiting for me. I should head upstairs now." With that, she practically fled from the car. Leonard watched her retreating figure and couldn't help chuckling softly. Only when the hallway light came on did he start the car and drive away. After going upstairs, she discovered her parents were peering out the window. Stacy exclaimed with a mix of frustration and amusement, "Dad, Mom, why are you peeking like little kids?" Only then did they turn around, their faces filled with relief. "We just wanted to see if our daughter was happily married. But now it's clear that Leo truly holds you dear to his heart." She lowered her head in shyness, though the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl upward. Just then, her mother suddenly called out, "Stacy, come with me for a moment." With that, Mrs. Smith turned and headed back to the room, Stacy following her inside, entering her mother's room. She saw her rummaging deep in the wardrobe when suddenly she pulled out a brass key from an old wooden box. "Stacy, weren't you always curious about what's inside this rosewood chest when you were little? Today I'll show you." Before Stacy could react, Mother Smith had already used the key to unlock the heavy rosewood chest beside the bedside table. The lid of the box clicked open, and her mother took out a red leather suitcase, then led her to sit on the bed, opening the red leather suitcase. She saw over 20 gold bars neatly stacked inside, along with gold bracelets and hairpins adorned with dragon and phoenix motifs. Stacy's eyes widened in surprise. Her mother gently caressed the gold ornaments, her eyes slightly red. "This is the dowry your father and I have been saving for you, little by little. Since you were born, every year you grew older, we added one piece. Now there are 29 pieces." Father Smith also entered the room, his voice a little choked. "This gold isn't a lot. But it's from your mom and dad's heart. When you and Leo have your wedding, use it as a grand dowry. Let everyone know that our Smith family's daughter has been cherished her whole life." At this moment, Stacy's nose stung, and tears welled up instantly, a mix of gratitude and bitterness intertwining in her heart. Indescribable, she threw herself into her parents' arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom and Dad, your daughter isn't getting married. I'll stay home with you, never leaving. For my whole life." Mom gently patted her back, her eyes also red. "Silly child, what nonsense are you talking about? You can still come home often after you're married. Leo loves you so much. That's why Mom and Dad feel at ease entrusting you to him." Dad sighed from the side, his voice hoarse. A grown daughter can't be kept at home forever, but seeing Stacy so cherished by so many, "Your father is happy." Stacy clutched her mother's sleeve, tears soaking the fabric. "Mom, Dad, even after I'm married, I'll come home often to see you." Half a month later, Twitter discussions about the Stacy and Leonard ship continue to trend at peak popularity. So Leonard announced on Twitter that they would hold another wedding ceremony. Moreover, they planned to host a fan meet and greet at the same hotel that day, inviting their admirers to share in their joy. Stacy also found it meaningful but worried it might be too extravagant, considering the cost of entertaining so many people. But Leonard chuckled over the phone, "Having so many people who like us is our blessing. We should give back to them and let everyone celebrate together." Everything was as she had imagined. The person she loved was inherently good, so even his kindness towards strangers was sincere. At the same time, over the past half-month, she had received countless calls and texts from unknown numbers. She knew without a doubt that they were from Luther, using different numbers. "Stacy, give me one more chance to explain. Please, Stacy, I know I was wrong. Won't you come back? I miss you so much. Stacy, could you please not marry Leonard?" In her heart, their story was like a book that had been finished long ago. The tale had ended ages past, but in Luther's heart, it seemed to remain stuck on the most painful page, unwilling to turn the chapter. Stacy thought carefully for a long time and decided to meet Luther once more, to completely draw a close to this past. Before going, she didn't make the decision on her own but sought Leonard's opinion. He was silent on the other end of the line for a long time, but soon sighed in relief and said gently, "Stacy, though I'd feel jealous hearing you're meeting him again, your honesty is admirable, and I support you." He was always like this, willing to unconditionally support her no matter what decisions she made. Stacy felt a warmth in her heart and said softly, "Come with me. After we finish talking, we'll go home together. My parents invited you over for dinner." Leonard's voice noticeably brightened. Okay, the coffee shop on the street corner, after the car stopped. Stacy asked Leonard to wait for her in the car. As soon as she entered the cafe, she saw Luther sitting by the window. Stacy walked over, and when he saw her, his eyes instantly lit up, his voice carrying a barely noticeable tremor. Stacy. She walked over and sat down opposite Luther, who leaned forward slightly, his tone tinged with nostalgia. Stacy, do you remember this spot? When we first started our business and had no office, we'd come here every day to use the free Wi-Fi. Stacy looked at him and replied faintly, I remember. His gaze grew more earnest as his voice lowered. Back then I was so poor I couldn't even afford a coffee. You'd always order a hot milk, and we'd share it between us. Before he could finish speaking, Stacy interrupted him. Luther, I came specifically to say goodbye to you this time. Luther turned pale and asked urgently, where are you going? Another trip? Or, are you leaving City N with Leonard? She looked up at him. Her tone calm yet resolute. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay in City N. I just came to say goodbye to you, and to our past. Luther was instantly lost in thought, just sitting there in silence, not speaking for a long time. Stacy also sat there, waiting and waiting for him to speak. The two of them remained silent for who knows how long. Luther picked up the coffee on the table and took a sip, his voice hoarse. Must it come to this? Is there really no room for turning back? Her tone was calm, yet every word was crystal clear. We graduated from university together, and now it's our 7th year. I'm 29 this year. I've given you the most precious years of my youth. Luther opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Stacy continued without pause. Luther, I can't afford to waste any more time, and the truth is, I don't love you anymore. I'm grateful I met Leonard, and I hope you'll find the right person too. As soon as he finished speaking, he fell silent again. Just as before, lowering his head to sip his coffee, the light refracted through the glass window. Stacy saw his shoulders trembling slightly. After a long while, he finally raised his head, his eyes rimmed red, his voice broken with sobs. If I hadn't been with Ruth back then, would you have married me? Would we have had a future? Stacy lowered her eyelids, her tone calm yet carrying an unshakable finality. Don't look back at the past. What's done is done. And don't dwell on an impossible future anymore. Without waiting for his reply, she straightened her skirt and stood up, ready to leave. But remembering all those sleepless nights of heartache, Stacy couldn't help turning back to add one last thing. If you had treated me the same from beginning to end, it would be you and me getting married now, with a home of our own. But from now on, we'll just be strangers. With that, Stacy left the cafe without looking back. Leonard waited for her in a black car by the roadside. She flashed him a relieved smile and quickly got in. As soon as she opened the car door, a vibrant bouquet of red roses greeted her on the passenger seat, their petals still glistening with dewdrops. Stacy brightened and asked in delight, when did you get these flowers? He started the car, glancing at her with a smile hidden in his eyes. Just now, an elderly woman was selling them by the roadside. Seeing how hard it must be for her at that age, I bought them all to give to you. Stacy picked up the bouquet and brought it close to her nose, the sweet fragrance lingering. Thank you, I love it. Then she added, Leonard, it's so good to have you. He chuckled lightly, gripping the steering wheel. Get in, let's go home. Auntie has already called to hurry us. Stacy nodded and fastened her seatbelt. All right, I'll follow your lead. The engine hummed softly as the car merged into the traffic and soon disappeared around the street corner. In the cafe, Luther watched the car gradually fade into the distance through the window, tears finally rolling down uncontrollably. During all these days apart, he had always felt that as long as he didn't relent, Stacy had never truly left him. Just like before when they were together, after quarreling and breaking up, they would always come back together after some time. It wasn't until today that he truly realized Stacy no longer loved him at all. It was because he didn't cherish her that he gradually lost Stacy, who once loved him the most. Opening his phone, the latest news on the screen showed that Stacy and Leonard were going to hold a wedding and fan meeting in City N. Just now Stacy's parting words kept echoing in his mind over and over. If you had treated me the same way from beginning to end, perhaps it would be you and me getting married now. But now, she was going to have a home with someone else. She wouldn't even give him the chance to remain friends, leaving them to become complete strangers who'd never interact again. He sat in the cafe like that the whole time, watching the ebb and flow of people outside the window, piece by piece. He pieced together their past here, only to shatter it again bit by bit. The waiter refilled his coffee again and again, but the memories he had personally destroyed could never be replenished. In the end, until the cafe closed, the waiter gently reminded him. He slowly rose to his feet, dragging his heavy steps, disappearing desolately into the night. 1 month later, Stacy and Leonard's wedding was held at the most prestigious Park Hyatt Hotel in City N. The fan meet and greet for the couple was also held on the third floor of the hotel. As the wedding wasn't convenient for fans to attend up close, a live broadcast screen was set up outside the banquet hall, allowing everyone to stand in front of it and clearly witness their happy moment of stepping into marriage. In the backstage lounge, she sat gracefully in front of the dressing mirror, wearing a custom-made wedding dress with a long train. Tess walked in and saw her like that, and her eyes immediately welled up. "Stacy, even though you and Leonard have already had a destination wedding, I wasn't there, so I feel like today is your official wedding day, and you're about to become Ms. Wilson." Stacy smiled and held her hand. "Silly, I'm getting married, I'm not disappearing forever. Why are you crying?" she sniffled, and said stubbornly, "Seeing my best friend of so many years get married, I just can't help it." To soothe her emotions, Stacy subconsciously changed the subject. "Didn't you say last time you'd bring someone you like to my wedding? So, where are they?" Only then did she wipe away her tears and smile, pulling her up to the window and pointing to a strikingly handsome man among the groomsmen outside. "Look, that one, Levi." Stacy looked and realized the man was none other than Leonard's right-hand man, Assistant Levi. Feigning annoyance, she poked Tess's arm. "You sly Tess, keeping such a big secret from me. You're actually dating Assistant Levi." Her cheeks flushed slightly as she explained in a low voice, "Oh, I wasn't sure if we'd end up together at the time, so I didn't mention it to you. But yesterday he confessed his feelings, and we're officially together now." Stacy smiled sincerely and gave her a gentle hug. "That's wonderful, Tess, I'm so happy for you." She returned the embrace. "Today is your wedding day. Those words should be mine to say. Wishing you happiness, Stacy." As soon as the words were spoken, staff members outside the door came to hurry them along. "The wedding ceremony is about to begin. Please proceed to the banquet hall entrance." "Bride." Stacy took a deep breath and walked to the carved wooden doors of the banquet hall. Inside, the murmurs and light laughter of guests reached her ears. She felt extremely nervous, her palms slightly damp with sweat. Her father stood beside Stacy, gently patting the back of her hand. Only then did she notice the beads of sweat densely gathered at his temples. He was even more nervous than his own daughter on her wedding day. Inside, the MC announced loudly as the doors slowly swung open. Warm golden light fell upon Stacy's pristine white wedding dress, making the scattered diamonds on her skirt sparkle brilliantly. "Please welcome the bride, Stacy." The melodious tune of Canon began to play as she held her father's arm, walking step by step down the red carpet toward Leonard, who was waiting on the stage. This stretch of road didn't seem long. Yet it took forever to walk. It felt like crossing all the paths ever walked before, heading straight toward a brand new future. As she approached Leonard, the tenderness in his eyes seemed ready to overflow. Dressed in a crisp black suit with neatly combed hair, he gazed affectionately at Stacy. It was as if the entire world had narrowed down to just the two of them. Her father gently placed her hand in Leonard's palm and nodded solemnly at him. "Leo, I entrust my daughter to you now. You must treat her well." Watching her father turn away with slightly reddened eyes, Stacy couldn't help but feel her own eyes grow moist. Moments later, only Stacy and Leonard remained on the stage. The host smiled and began to speak. "Groom, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, will you love her, cherish her, and never leave her, for as long as you both shall live?" Leonard tightened his grip on her hand, his voice firm and clear. "I do." The MC turned to Stacy, repeating the same question. "Bride, do you take this man to be your husband, to love and cherish him, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, till death do you part?" Stacy gazed at her reflection in his eyes and nodded with a smile. "I do." As the words fell, thunderous cheers and applause erupted from below. Stacy glanced at her teary-eyed parents in the audience and at Tess, who was smiling through her tears. Then turned her gaze to Leonard, his eyes slightly reddened. At this moment, she truly felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. This, she thought, was the perfect ending, the end.